because I still want to do what we're doing. I think it'd just be cool, like, because that Roger Waters thing was just pulled out of an episode where we're talking, right? And like,
yeah.
So I think we might want to do the same thing. Like, I'm not looking to. I don't really want to try and. I mean, it'd be foolish not to try and capitalize on it a bit because maybe not foolish, maybe it is. I don't know how to like approach it because I know you have experience with having. You still put out videos that get 1,000 views sometimes. Sometimes you get 20 views. Sometimes you get 1,000. I don't know what it is about. I know it's one of your most recent. Like one of your most recent videos had 1,000 views within a couple of days. I noticed.
I don't know what's going on. That's one called Gargle Bart, which is not even.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, what the hell happened there? I don't know. It's got nearly, as you say, it's got nearly 1,000 views. I don't know why that happened. I haven't been able to figure that out.
Because before that, the most I've ever gotten in a short period of time was 100 for one of my songs, and that was it. So it was an experience. Still, like I look at it every day, and I see it's gone up. It's over 3,000 views now, which is like when we hit over 100 that quickly. I was like, oh my god, this is cool. And then when it hit 1,000, I couldn't believe it. And then. But the part that I wasn't prepared for, I'm not a social media guy, right? As you probably noticed, you can't find me on anything but Twitter, and my Twitter account is Baron. So it's just because I'm never someone who does what everybody else is doing, and social media was, to me, obviously something I didn't want to be part of right from day one. A lot of people have questioned me, going like, "How'd you know it was going to be a cesspool of shit?" I'm like, I didn't. I just didn't want. I was happy with the way my life was going. I like being at a phone call or a text message or an email away from my friends. I don't want this display thing, which, and based on when I was younger, I often say things I wish I didn't say. So I'm glad there's not a record of me being an idiot and an asshole, right? So it's I like to experience life as a human rather than as a computer program, So I wasn't prepared for the way these comments would make me feel,
right.
And you probably noticed I got in a little bit of a fucking tangle with one of them. Maybe you saw where the guy was. Which I had so much I wanted to say to this guy if he's willing to engage with me in an intellectual way, but he's a troll, right? So he doesn't want to engage. He just wants to hurt my feelings, right? So it doesn't matter what I say or what I do. He's gonna criticize me and make me. And that was the one where he said he can't stand Roger Waters because he's a Trump supporter, and he only likes art or music that's rooted in a stable democracy. Like, I'm like, what? That sounds like a twisted fucking comment to make. Like, to me, like, it's like
I didn't see that one. I must go and look at that. I didn't see that one. I went on yesterday and dealt with some of the outstanding things, but I didn't see that one. I'll be very interested to see that.
What I'd love for you too, because you might notice there's only a couple I commented on under the eyebrow, right? Because I would sign in, and if I saw something, I might say something, and you're very quick with it. And by the way, I think the way you reply to these people is amazing. Like, I think it's. I really like the way you reply to these guys, because you could take any comment and turn it around into something positive, and
many years of experience being flamed from all directions. I've got a sort of jujitsu way of dealing with these things now. Yeah.
Well, it's remarkable, and I have to commend you for it. I think it's a magical touch, and I think it probably speaks well, because I know when I comment on a video, and if the creator responds back to me, especially thoughtfully, it makes my day.
Yeah.
So these people you're replying to, if they're like me, you've made their day, and they feel like they're part of something, and hopefully they'll come back for more, right? Which I think is really responsible, respectful, and just it's a delight to read. And I made a couple comments too that I thought were on par, but I think you still you're better at making it sound flowerier and more inviting than I do, and more joyful.
When you say that you got into a discussion with this guy, were you commenting as Deaf by Design, or were you in the Listening Eyebrow account?
Well, I keep mixing it because I actually have two YouTube accounts. I have Deaf by Design and Chris Sharon, because my Deaf by Design account I had before YouTube and Google forced everything together, right? So, and it wasn't called Deaf by Design back then. I had a different name, but I changed it to Deaf by Design when I was releasing music. So I have the one that Google forced upon me, and so the one that Google forced upon me is where my YouTube music subscription lies, which drives me nuts. So my YouTube account and my YouTube music account are separate. They're always fighting each other. So sometimes I'm signed in as Chris Sharon, sometimes I'm signed in as Deaf by Design. So in this case here,
right.
I was as Chris Sharon, right? So I don't even know if he realizes I'm from the show. But it does label it as a reply from the eyebrow, because it knows I'm a co-manager, I guess. So even though there's no eyebrow comment, it'll say you've replied.
Oh, right.
So my initial response was like, I know that Roger Waters in the recent times has probably come out to say it probably spoke somewhat positively about Trump, maybe because he seems like a human. But like, I saw Roger Waters on tour while Trump was president, And he used to fly a big pig dressed up like Donald Trump that with Trump spray painted on it for like 17 minutes while they played dogs.
Right.
Right? Like, and pigs. Like, they would play like dogs and pigs together. So it'd be like 25 minutes long thing where they flew Trump around and like threw fucking paint at it and stuff. And like, so like literally Roger Waters has probably spent somewhere around 1,000 hours flying a pig of Trump around the world, you know, and calling him a pig. So I don't consider that a Roger Waters supporter. So I thought I was going to bring that into the argument with this guy. But my response was, which criminal do you support? Which I thought was a very clever response, right? Because like, I'm assuming this guy must be American. Mind you, Trump is debated all over the world. But most people that bring Trump into a conversation are probably American, and they're probably, and if they talk so poorly of him, they're probably a Democrat. So I'm assuming he's a Biden supporter, you know, and Biden's a drooling idiot that supports criminals all around him, who's a criminal himself, right? So, and I was going to point out that every president of the United States that I've ever seen has been a criminal who has been responsible for murdering millions of people. You know, so I just wanted to get a discussion about that, like, you know, I you know, and talk more about Roger Waters not being a Trump supporter. I don't think Roger Waters supports any politicians, really. You know, he might suggest one person's a better vote than another, but you know how he is, right? He spits vitriol constantly, right? And if you support a war, if you support any form of genocide or anything like that, he's against you, right? You know, like and that's why when I said in the podcast that I think I'd agree with his political views more than David Gilmour's, that's because Roger Waters is like, burn it all down. The system's broken, you know, whereas Dave's just like, we got it pretty good. You know, let's keep the, you know, keep it left and we'll be happy. I got tangled up in that, and I felt like I'm not used to having that done to me. And I felt myself losing sleep over this guy's comments, you know, and like checking my phone at 3:00 in the morning to see if he replied, you know, to see if it'd go further. And I've been debating whether or not I should reply again or do nothing or just leave it as it is, you know, because I don't feel there's any constructive need to talk to this guy anymore. But I feel like I want to make my point said. And plus I also made a spelling mistake in one of my comments. So then he's just like, you're an idiot. You need to proofread and learn how to read. And I'm like, oh my God, you're an asshole.
If you're not comfortable doing it, then don't do it. Is my either you're aiming to use it as a tool, in which case you need to learn all these things.
Yeah.
Or you have no intention of using it as a tool and it just annoys you, in which case don't bother. I've sort of said that to many people over the years. Well, you know, if you're not comfortable with it, don't do it, because you don't need to do it. You're probably not going to gain anything by doing it. And I know exactly the feelings that you're expressing there.
Yeah.
And I've had those feelings.
Yeah.
But it's 20 years since I had those feelings.
What's it?
Or no.
I don't want to.
It's 15 years.
I don't want to avoid it because I think my goal would be for us to get millions of views for our little blurbs, right? Like, obviously that's what we want. We want to be able to make this thing something that makes our music more fruitful, makes our careers feel like fulfilled as creative beings, right? And these conversations are magic, right? So it'd be great to see something more magical come about it, right? Like, it's, you know, so I don't want to shy away from it in the sense that, like, I want to be able to get better at dealing with it, you know? So what I should have done is just ignore the comment altogether, you know? Or I thought, like I said, I thought I made a really clever response, and I was hoping someone else might read it and be like, yeah, like, see his point, because whether he gets my point or not, he's a troll, right? So that's why I'm like, don't feed the troll. Let's let him die. Let him starve on his fucking, you know, because he.
What I say is, make a friend of the troll. That's how to do it.
Well, I was trying to.
Yeah.
I was trying to. That's why I'm. Okay. So like, I'm trying. Let me see if I'm gonna find the comment here. So it's easy for me to find, because at the end of the comment, he put like these 3 like devil faces, and it's from a guy named Pat Comerford.
He says, oh, let's go through this. Let me go through this, right? Let me go through this. We'll put this up. We'll put this on the record.
Let's do it.
So,
yeah.
Pat Comerford 5596. We'll call him Pat from here on. He comes in on the Roger Waters video and he says, Rogers supporting the criminal Trump betrays us all who value true creativity grounded in a secure democracy. To hell with Rogers. Okay, that's like, yeah, that's a strongly held opinion right there. So you already know that you're dealing with somebody who's probably been hurt by something somewhere along the way. You don't say that kind of thing unless you've had an experience, a life experience, or something that's happened to you.
Like watching too much CNN.
Yeah. You've been confirmed in all your views, and this is the view that you hold, because we're talking about music here. We're talking about whether Roger should make this new album, this new version of Dark Side of the Moon, and we as part of that, we touch on the nature of the characters of Roger Waters and Dave Gilmour, who are the two guys who seem to be at odds about this. And we discussed, amongst other things, we discussed their political views, and we probably come down more with Roger than we do with Dave Gilmour. So that's the background to this. And then you come on and say, which criminals do you support? Making the point in a very neat little, that's called sniping. A very neat little snipe. Yeah. You say, okay, but you must support criminals too. And he comes back and says, Pat comes back and says, such an inane question. Were you born this way, or is it a choice? That's he's doubling down, isn't he? He's doubling down at that point on hurting you. He wants to hurt you at that point. He doesn't care. He doesn't care that you've made that point. He just wants you to know that you're a piece of shit, as far as he's concerned. Let's go on. So you come back and say, what was insane about the question? I honestly would like you to elaborate. Okay, so that's you're saying, well, what's that? And he says, please learn to read properly. He's just giving you nothing. He's giving you nothing at this point.
Yeah.
And you say, I'm sorry, my phone corrected the word incorrectly. I was hoping for a constructive conversation. I guess you would rather throw insults. Okay, and he comes back and he says, so you need to proofread your comments before you post them and stop being a victim by blaming your phone. My God. He's giving you nothing. He's giving you nothing.
No.
So, yeah, that's a very, very typical sort of YouTube commentary. I've seen that. You see that all the time. You see that all the time. What do you say about stuff like that? It goes off in a direction that's got nothing to do with the video. It's just two people with either opposed views or opposed way of looking at things.
Yep.
There isn't any easy way to deal with that. But what I would do with that one is I would assume that guy is genuine in his beliefs. His beliefs are as important as ours.
Yeah.
And I would support him. I would start by supporting him in that belief, and I would say, you're right. I don't mean that he's right. I just mean, okay, I get that, but here's another point of view. In my experience, trying to bend somebody back from a position that you've got no idea about how they arrived at that position. It doesn't work. It never works. It never works if you try and you try and be precise, and you try and be opposed to them. You just will. They will shut down. They'll just shut the shutters on you right away.
Yeah. And
the way to do it is jujitsu style. Is to agree with them, to find something that you agree on, and turn it round that way. If you're bothered.
Yeah.
You don't have to be bothered. You don't have to do any of that. You can just go, whatever.
Well,
and these things don't bother me anymore because I've seen it so often. And yes, I did have the sleepless nights. When I was doing well on YouTube, I was getting this stuff. I was getting 50 of these a day. And I was dealing with them at work. I was coming home, I was dealing with them. I was thinking about them all night. I wasn't getting any sleep. I couldn't do any music. I was just dealing with this stuff. And I learned all of this. I learned what works and what doesn't work. And some you just have to give up. Some you get an inkling. Well, I could turn this round. And there's nothing better than turning somebody round. There's nothing better than turning. But they don't stay. That's the thing.
Yeah.
The end of all this is that you do all this work to connect with this person. You never hear from them again. They don't subscribe to your channel. They don't come back.
Yeah.
They just disappear. So is it actually worth it?
Well,
I think what you were saying earlier is important. If you engage with people, there are some people who find that useful, and that's enough. Even if they don't ever come back, or you don't know that they've come back, it's enough to make your interactions useful in some way to them, or something that they enjoy. And that's what I try and do.
And my train of thought about it too is not as much about connecting with Pat, is more displaying an interaction with somebody that, because I know like for every one person that makes a comment, 100 people read the comment, right?
Yeah.
So it was more for the readers of the comment than necessarily the commenter.
Of course.
And what my end game was not as much to bend him around, but just to bring to light that I don't think that Roger Waters is a Trump supporter. That was the only point I was going to make. and that Roger is trying to wake us all up. That Roger's goal in life is for us to all realize that we're trapped in an oppressive system from all angles, you know, and voting might not be the way out of it, you know. And that was kind of where I was trying to go with it. But then I realized it was like, no, this guy literally just wants to throw mud. He doesn't want to, you know, and the longer I stand there, the muddier I'm going to get, you know.
Exactly.
You know,
but the interesting thing about his first comment there is that he's putting, let me just read it again. It's
a weird twist.
Yeah, it is something I've not heard before. See, that would be another way to approach it, would be to say, what do you mean? I've never heard that before. I don't understand what you mean about creativity grounded in a secure democracy. Are you saying that the security of the democracy that Roger Waters operates within is what allows him to say these things? He can say, tear it all down, whereas if he was in China or Russia, he wouldn't be able to say those things. Is that the point the guy's trying to make? That Roger's betraying the very system that allows him to say that? He's betraying it. Is that the point that's being made?
It might be. You're giving him more credit than I was. I thought he was just trying to twist something into making it about how Trump is dangerous for democracy, which is another conversation I think is an absurd conversation, because he got voted in democratically. So I don't know how someone who got chose through democratic processes is dangerous for democracy. But I think he's probably talking like he thought Trump would never leave the White House. He would just, you know, lock the doors and say, I'm president forever. You know, you know, which is funny because both sides say the same thing all the time. Like, people are accusing the Democrats, like they think Trudeau's ever going to leave office in Canada. They think Biden's ever going to leave office, and, you know, it's going to be weekend in Bernie's for the next 30 years while they puppet a dead Biden around, you know. But
well, there was that election where Al Gore lost narrowly to Bush.
Yeah.
But did he lose? Did he actually lose it narrowly? It came down to what I remember of it was that George Bush was in the car ready to go to the White House, and all the cameras were ready to see him go to the White House, and it was delayed because Bush wasn't sure that he'd won. He wasn't sure that he could do that.
Yeah.
So it's never. There is always that question about, you know, was it all right? Was everything counted correctly? It's very difficult for us to tell from the outside.
Yeah.
You know, that whole sort of idea. Every politician, the system breeds them that way. There's no way to get to be president of the United States if you're just an ordinary person with ordinary interests in life. You have to be extraordinary in one way or another. And most of the people who get there have skirted the law because it's the only way you can get there.
Yeah.
The guys who don't skirt the edges of the law are the guys who lose.
Yep.
It's the way the system is. So of course, your comment about which criminal do you support is apt. But I would have investigated that idea, but it's just not something I'm familiar with. To say, how does that work? How do you think that? Yeah, it's an interesting one. That it's a very interesting exchange.
It is, right?
I love that kind of stuff. I really do. I love being on the sidelines watching that and going, yeah, this is good.
Well, and I'd love to hear from Pat. And if Pat does dare come back and listen, you know, I would love to find out what you mean by creativity and grounded in a secure democracy.